here today. The inaugural episode of Swedish in Seattle, the podcast. So excited. The sun is shining. My name is Camille. I am the event marketing manager here at the Swedish Club.
My name is Stina Cowan. I am the cultural director here at the Swedish Club. And I just have to mention the view we are looking at right now. We're overlooking Lake Union, and I think the Swedish Club has the best view in town.
Something that everybody who comes here always comments on is the view in this location on Dexter Avenue. And my name is Karin Filipsson. I am the Director of Foreign Studies here at the club.
We've got a lovely episode for you, just filled with history, some information about our lovely Swedish Club. We're going to learn more about why Swedes came to Seattle. That's been my question. What is so great about Seattle? Why did they end up here?
Well, a lot of people left Sweden. There was a peak period between about late 1800s to about 1910 where about 1.3 million people left Sweden. The majority went to the United States, and a lot of them came to Seattle. I think personally that the nature here was what drew people to Seattle. And they could do things that they had done at home. They were loggers.
Loggers, nice.
Yeah, fishermen, farmers. They could do all that when they were here, and they recognized the nature. There were mountains, there were water, there were farms, and I think they felt at home.
Do we know what they were leaving from in Sweden? Because Sweden seems nice when I see the pictures now.
Back then, the population was growing fast, and a lot of them were farmers. There were only so much farmland to farm, and there was also a system where the oldest son in the family inherited the farm. They had big families, so if they had 7 kids, the oldest son inherited the farm, and for the rest there was nothing to do.
Wow.
And there was also crop failures that impacted people, and there was also religious oppression. People wanted to practice religion the way they wanted, and not just in the state church.
Mm-hmm.
And lastly, I think people were just looking for adventure and opportunity. People now go for the nature as well. I think people who come, as immigrants now or just guest workers for a few years, if they're at Microsoft or Amazon or Boeing, Swedish people like to be outside. They are drawn to the Pacific Northwest because they can go skiing and hiking and fishing and do the things they love at home.
It's interesting because we have, the famous author Vilhelm Moberg has written the books about the immigrants and the immigrants to America. And a lot of people came to this area for sure, and also Minnesota and some other areas with lots of similar types of nature like we have in Sweden.
Mm-hmm.
We like the snow, we like the mountains, we like the woods. And I think for a Swede, it's very important to have a lot of space to roam in nature. So I agree with you, that could be part of the choices of where the Swedish people who emigrated settled down. Because, we have the right to roam, the right to public access in Sweden, as we call it, allemansrätten, all men's right, that we actually have this legal right in Sweden to roam freely and to pick berries, to walk, to camp, to swim, basically anywhere, even on private property. I looked it up a little bit more in detail because I started thinking, how would an American react to such a law that you have the right to do all these things? But there is something mentioned that's kind of vague about the golden rule of common sense. So you kind of have to use your own common sense to decide whether it's too close to a house to put up your tent or not.
Yeah.
But the vagueness is fascinating. How do they solve these situations?
Yeah.
There's something called peace at home that you have to respect according to the law. I looked it up. It literally says you have to respect the peace at home, the people who live there. So I guess you can't throw a big barbecue party or something in their backyard. That would be going too far.
And I think there's a limit to how many days you can pitch your tent. 3 days or something. So you can't
That's still nice. That's a staycation at least.
It is.
I do that a couple
Yeah.
places in America if given the right to roam.
Yes.
You can do it
Yeah.
for free.
Yeah.
That's what I like. Free
Oh,
camping in
so-
America. That's fantastic.
As long as you don't disturb or destroy, as
Oh.
it says in the law.
Yeah, no. I'm just there for the view.
Be careful about picking the mushrooms, though. There's some vagueness about the right to the truffles, specifically the truffles. It has not been solved yet, but you can pick You can definitely pick berries and mushrooms in general.
And I think too, the chanterelles people are so particular about those. They call the gold of the forest. And
Yes.
sometimes if you're out picking mushrooms with someone and you kind of spread out, you're a group, and then suddenly someone becomes completely silent, you know that person found some really good
struck
ones.
gold.
And then afterward, you will, oh, where did you find all those? Oh, I don't remember. They were somewhere back there. People do not want to tell their secret places.
Oh no, those are like state secrets.
Yes.
My grandmother used to have those. She would never reveal.
Wow.
She took it to her grave. I do
Left
not
with
know.
her.
Yeah, I don't know the secret spots for getting the best. Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure.
I'm not originally from Seattle. I'm a California native. But as somebody who's been in Seattle for a while, how Swedish is Seattle altogether? Because the neighborhood of Ballard seems very Swedish, obviously. But just in general, how much influence is there in Seattle?
I think quite a lot.
I think so too. Compared to other places where I talk to people around the country, maybe with the exception of Minnesota, because I know that there's a large population of Scandinavian immigrants. But yeah, we have a lot of Swedish culture here and a lot of Swedish community, which I think is one reason that I like to live here, to be honest. And I think a lot of people feel the same way.
Yeah.
And I think some of the mentality of people in Seattle kind of fit the Scandinavian mentality in many ways.
Can you elaborate on that?
The Seattle freeze.
Yeah.
I didn't want to say it.
That
Well.
is nothing like the Swedish freeze.
Is that like a cultural thing? Because I know, and this is just specifically me, I know it's like for me, saying hi to random people, it's not like, hey, how's it going? I'd like to meet you. It's just like a nice, hi, hello. I feel like people here, it's like, I'm in my world and you are invading that bubble. Is that a thing, or is that just...
I think what you're talking about is partially a Scandinavian type of thing also, but in Sweden or Scandinavia, you'd have to take it a bit further, where you kind of not even acknowledge their existence and look away if you're in a public place or in an elevator. No, I'm exaggerating, but yeah, I mean, you have a point. I don't know if it's because the history of Scandinavians moving here, or if it's something with the weather that is kind of cold and rainy sometimes, and you kind of hurry to get home. But it's definitely something that you will notice if you travel in Sweden, that people tend to not be as fond of small talk in public places. Won't you agree, Stina? In the grocery store, bus stops.
I agree, absolutely. Not like here.
It's funny, I was listening to a podcast with some Swedish people talking, a Swedish podcast, and they were talking about how they were home on a Saturday and the doorbell rang, and they were so freaked out because you cannot just come unannounced and visit. And it was actually this person's mother, and she was really upset, like, how dare you come? I was not prepared. And the other person's like, no, of course not. If somebody rings the doorbell, you run and hide.
No.
That was kind of funny, but it's we're joking, but I think it's also, it could be part of also a different culture of respecting other people's independence. Independence and privacy is I think big parts of the Swedish culture. So it doesn't have to be always like read as a negative, but it could maybe be, could be conveyed as a negative thing.
Yeah. And I think it's a little different now, but it used to be when I went to school, and probably you too, Karin, where you went with the same kids from, kindergarten or first grade through ninth grade, unless you moved. There was no mixing of the classes or, changing. You had the same teacher for 3 years. You went with the same kids from, all through ninth grade. And then I think it was harder to come into that class if you came from somewhere else. Whereas here, I think people are used to, people move more. People are, you're in second grade, and then the third grade, you are with other kids and another teacher. And I think you're more trained then to make new contacts with people or relationships all the time.
Yeah.
And that's a good point. I think that's like why Americans are so good at socializing, because they are trained from an early age like that.
Mhm.
I remember when we moved here, we lived in California before when my kids were little, and I was shocked that they had to get a new teacher every year and new classmates, because not only is it true that what you said, you followed the same class for 9 years, but you also have the same teacher for 3 years.
Wow.
I was very concerned, but then my American friends said, "That's of course it's good for them," and they
Concerned.
positive. I was concerned. They have to say hi to new people. Oh no, the horror of having to meet new people every year.
The horror.
The horror.
So you touched on briefly, and we'll touch on it for both of you. You said you started in California. How did we end up, Karin, in Seattle? How did we settle in Seattle?
I think we followed them. I hear Seattle is the new Silicon Valley, but I've been hearing that for many years. Have you heard that?
Yes.
So I think we followed along with the flow of people, the tech companies who came up here.
Mm.
So I met my husband in Brussels, Belgium, and he was in the Navy. And then we moved to DC, and then he retired from the Navy, and we had to choose where to live. And he wanted to go to either Seattle or San Diego. Those were the two. And I have to say, kind of like the older immigrants, that when I had to choose between those two, or when I chose between those two, I did feel like Seattle had more the different seasons and the more of the same climate and nature. And I actually, did a little research, and I knew there was Swedish culture here, which was important to me then. And I was pregnant when we got here and called the Swedish hospital thinking that, wow, they have a Swedish hospital. I can get a doctor who speaks Swedish.
Yeah. That was so confusing for me
Oh,
for many
me too.
years. Like, is it Swedish? Is it not? Why is
Yeah.
it called Swedish? I remember looking at, I did a little bit of research also when the question came up about moving to Seattle. And I remember that I saw that there was a big bookstore, the Elliott Bay bookstore that they had, because all I care about is books and language and writers. So I looked that up, looked at some culture, some music culture, and also the coffee culture, because Swedes are big coffee drinkers, and this is a place where we have a lot of coffee shops and coffee culture and Starbucks and all that. So that is another maybe a connector to the Swedish culture, where people love it here.
Yeah.
We love to, on a rainy day, to go into a coffee shop and read a book, or I do at least. Introverted.
That is, there's a lot of wonderful coffee shops for sitting silently, alone, unbothered. Unbothered. I think I moved for the seasonal change too. I mean, again, growing up in California, it's either summer or it's not. I like the fall and the spring here. And noticing the different neighborhoods. I was anticipating very Asian dominant, but living so close to Ballard and paying attention to my surroundings. You see a lot of Nordic Scandinavian flags. So in California, the only city that I know of is Solvang. So, and I think that's more Dutch or
Danish.
A fake
Danish.
Danish city.
Yeah,
I've been there. I'm like, it's not
See,
really
and
Danish.
you saying fake is funny too. So I was like, we're getting pretzels, we're having a good time. Circling back to historical Seattle and Sweden, what about the Swedish Club, or were you tied to the Swedish Club when you immigrated? What do you remember about the Swedish Club when you moved here?
So when I moved here, so I'm a teacher from the beginning, and when I moved here, I thought there was going to be a Swedish school where I could work. And when I found out there wasn't, I met this friend, and she and I actually started the Swedish school 25 years ago now. And we were here at the Swedish Club. So that's how I got in touch with the Swedish Club from the beginning, and then have been, on and off, more or less involved, and always loved the pancake breakfast. My kids love those.
I remember living on the east side. I had some friends who had lived in Seattle before, and when they heard that I was Swedish, they said, "Oh, we used to always go to the Swedish pancake breakfast at the Swedish Club." And I was very confused, because in Sweden we don't eat pancakes for breakfast.
No, we don't.
So I was like, that can't be Swedish. I was like, that can't be true. So I was just politely nodding, and I didn't want to offend my new friends. But they were so excited. So finally I did go to the Swedish pancake, and it was great. It was Swedish pancakes, but it was just, we don't eat it for breakfast in Sweden.
When do you eat the Swedish pancakes?
Lunch.
Lunch
Or
or dessert.
Or dinner.
Yeah.
For kids at least.
Yeah.
Is it still sweet?
Yes.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
It's definitely not breakfast.
But
anyway, it was
Yeah.
so fun. And then my kids joined the Swedish school that you just mentioned, and I loved that on Sunday mornings. And then I started also teaching there later on at the Swedish school. And like you said, it was located here in this wonderful building, and it was just so amazing. And the kids loved with the arts and crafts and the Lucia and all of that. So it was a wonderful way to get that Swedish community and the pancake breakfasts.
Sounds like the Swedish Club has always been a place to host community for immigrants, make sure that there's a place to feel like home, whether it's not exactly like home, but adjacent to home.
Yeah, just the building and all the decorations in the buildings, like the paintings, and I mean the decor. It's still blows me away. I feel so happy just walking into it. You really feel like home a little bit when you walk into the building.
For our listeners who have not been to the building or have not driven by, it's a lovely mid-century modern building, off of Dexter, overlooking South Lake Union. But I understand the building, or at least the Swedish Club, wasn't always housed in this building. That was established in 1961.
It was. So before the Great Fire in 1889, the Swedish population in Seattle was very small. 190 people was counted having Scandinavian heritage in King County. But then during the Great Migration that we talked a little bit about before, a lot of people moved in. And in between 1890 and maybe 1930 or 1910 or so, 150,000 people of Scandinavian descent came to Seattle.
Wow.
And at one point, it was the largest foreign-born population in the city.
Mm.
So definitely a strong Scandinavian influence. And the people who came was from the beginning mostly men. And they worked in, as we talked about, in the logging industry. They were fishermen, they were farmers. And a lot of them stayed in a hotel in downtown Seattle, which was actually owned by the honorary consul, Andrew Kihlborg. And the building had 3 floors, and on the top 2 floors, they had hotel rooms where the people stayed. And then on the first floor, there was the Swedish Press, which was the newspaper, and a restaurant. And after these guys came home from work, they would sit in the back, in the garden, and they would talk, and they would, be able to talk Swedish to each other, and they would read, and they would smoke pipes, and they would discuss the possibility of having a Swedish club. Late 1890s, they had a meeting, and within a year, they actually formed the club. And in the beginning, it was at the hotel. They were just meeting there. And they did sit down and discuss the rules. And for instance, women were not allowed at the meetings, they said, but they could come to the social events because they did want women there. There was some suggestion that this was just going to be for upper class members, no working class members, but that was vetoed. And there was also suggestion that this was going to be no alcohol was going to be
dry Swedish
club.
That's interesting.
It was an interesting suggestion, and even more interesting because they wanted to name the club Bellman. And Carl Michael Bellman was a very famous 18th century poet, songwriter, composer. And I think he has written the most famous drinking songs in all of Swedish history. So name a sober club after him seemed a little misplaced.
Maybe a little.
But that didn't happen. But the club did form, and early 1900s they started talking about we need to have our own building. And Nels B. Nelson, who was one of the founders of Frederick and Nelson's department store, actually had a plot that he I think, gave to the club. And that was on 8th Avenue and Olive Street in the corner there.
Mhm.
And that was the first building that the Swedish Club moved into, a modest wood frame clubhouse. And fast forward a little bit to the 1950s, this site on Dexter Avenue was actually offered to the Swedish Club by one of the members to purchase. This new property was actually less expensive. I think it was considered to being a little outside of town
Mhm.
back in the day. And we're very lucky that they jumped on this opportunity because the view and the location is so perfect. And already then they realized that parking was really crucial.
Mm.
So the groundbreaking ceremony was held in 1959, and then it was opened in 1961. But if we go back a little bit, some of the early members of the Swedish Club were really famous people in Seattle and are still. And one of them was John Nordstrom.
Oh,
Yes.
I know that name.
Yes.
Oh yeah, that's a very interesting story. Actually, he was born in Sweden,
Mhm.
and he had the name Johan Wilhelm Nordström,
Hmm.
and then Nordström had 2 dots over the O,
Mm.
second O, right? All the Swedish people listening will know that. And then he changed the name later on to John. So he was born in Alvik, outside of Luleå, in 1871. And when he was 8 years old, his father, a farmer, died. And 3 years later, his mother took him out of school to help her on the farm. But then at age 16, he actually left and moved to America.
Wow.
And kind of relating to what you told us earlier, Stina, about how families sometimes really couldn't afford to feed all their children. So he went on his own on an adventure, and he had $5, according to the story, $5 in his pocket when he
Wow.
moved here. And he was working in different jobs, the railroads, mines, shipyards, and eventually ended up in Seattle, Washington. And while he was working here at a sawmill, he saw an ad about the discovery of gold in Alaska. So he went over there to look for his fortune, and he ended up investing and in a claim for gold. And there was some complications, but finally he was offered $30,000 for his claim, and he split that with 2 of his friends, and he returned to the warmer climate of Seattle with his $13,000.
Wow.
And here he and his friend Carl Wallin, they actually started the first shoe store, and it was called Wallin and Nordstrom at the time, and it was just selling shoes, and it was on 4th Avenue and Pike Street in 1901. And then, of course, the empire grew into bigger stores, as we all know, retail stores all over.
Oh yes, I'm well aware.
And the story says that even in his 80s, he would still come into the shoe department of the stores and chat with customers almost every day.
Wow.
So he was truly more of an American than a Swede, because he liked small talk.
And I think too that the shoe department is always a little, has a special place in all the Nordstroms. I
Oh
think,
yes.
because of
Yeah.
the origin of the store.
Yeah. It's got a special place in my heart, that's for sure. It's my favorite part of Nordstrom's to frequent.
Going back to the early settlers here, or the early Swedish Club members, one of the club's concerns, or the members' concern, was healthcare. They were really concerned. They wanted to be able to offer their members great healthcare, and that's how the Swedish Hospital was founded. It was a group of men, some of them physicians, that started the Swedish Hospital. And as they were doing that, there was another hospital called Summit Hospital that was started, had no Swedish connection, but the physician who started it, he died before it really got off the ground, and his wife was really concerned. She didn't know what to do with everything. They had all the equipment and the uniforms and the china and the everything. And so the physicians in the group who started Swedish Hospital, they bought all that. And it was really convenient because everything was monogrammed for Summit Hospital, SH, and they could just use everything for their uniforms and their everything.
That's smart.
The blankets and the, everything. But now, of course, Swedish Hospital is a huge internationally known medical center, but it started with those early Swedes back in the day.
So we were both right when we moved here, and we thought it was a Swedish hospital.
Right?
It is a Swedish
It
hospital.
is.
I mean, it
Maybe
is Swedish.
was more than is.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe we shouldn't be looking for only Swedish speaking doctors. in
No.
hospital.
No, I don't think we should. So that was a little bit about the early Swedes who came here and the Swedish Club.
What can you find at the Swedish Club today? I think, Karin, you can let us know more about Swedish language classes. I know that I dropped off. Don't hold me accountable. But you could let us know kind of about the upcoming spring quarter.
Oh, yeah. You can always come back.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Talk.
Varsågod.
There you go.
We actually have already people faithfully coming back and getting to know each other as they move up through the levels in my classes.
That's
so that's
wonderful.
super fun. So we're creating some connections as well as learning Swedish. On the teaching desk, we have a spring quarter coming up, and they should be all up on the website so people can sign up. I already seen people register for them because the spring quarter is starting on April 17th, ending on June 12th. And as always, we have both online Zoom classes taught by me and in-person classes taught by Britt Fletcher.
Yes.
So people can choose if they want to come in person or if they want to do it from the comfort of their own home.
Wonderful.
And so, some of the classes that we have coming up, the Zoom online classes that I'm teaching, we're doing beginning 3. And I should say also people have maybe taken classes previous years, and they can just email and ask about what kind of level they need, but approximately level 1, level 2 to be able to come into beginning 3.
Yeah.
But it doesn't have to be consecutively. They could have studied a year or 2 before, or they could have done Duolingo. So there are like many ways of coming into the classes. So
That's wonderful. And what kind of things are your students doing in order to, or why are they learning the Swedish language? Is it just to learn, or are they doing something fun?
Yeah, it's actually been really, really fun. And people come together and from so many different walks of life, but they have different reasons for learning Swedish in all ages. And they are also so good at giving recommendations to each other about, for example, podcasts to listen to, Instagram accounts, YouTube videos, movies, Love is Blind, Sweden. Just to kind of, so every time you get that kind of cultural boost, also ideas for how to do things in between classes.
Yeah.
Also have an expert class where we're going to read a book and talk about a book together. And we're also starting a new thing that I am trying out for the first time on Fridays. We're going to have something called Zoom Fika, like a coffee hour online. We will just not need to buy a book or anything like that, but just kind of converse about different topics, which I will bring ideas for. And then in the in-person classes, we have intermediate 3, and we have expert classes B and C, reading books and discussing literature together. So much fun. So which one are you going to pick, Camille?
I think I'm a little bit behind. I got to get back to beginning 2, work on my Duolingo vocab, get back up to it. But it was definitely fun, the classes I was at. It was interesting seeing where people came from, if they were learning for their partner or about to go travel.
I think people are having a lot of fun just getting together and talking about something that they're interested in.
Yeah.
And it's very low pressure. Like you don't have to do a lot of homework if you don't want to. It's really like everybody's welcome. It's a safe space, and learning together as a group is super fun.
I was very happy there were no pop quizzes. That made me very happy.
But it's also great that you don't have to be in Seattle to go to take the class.
Yeah,
You can be everywhere.
Yeah.
We do have people zooming in from other states like Colorado, California, and if people are traveling, they can still log in. And most of these classes are in the evening, of course, except for that Friday coffee midday. But maybe somebody has a little coffee break, even if they're working, and can zoom in and join the conversation.
What other fun things are coming up at the Swedish Club?
So many fun things. We just in February, earlier this month, started our Bergman series, Ingmar Bergman movies. And on March 14th, we will show Bergman's masterpiece, Wild Strawberries. It's really a fantastic movie, and it's going to just be made even more fantastic by our moderator, who is Professor Emerita Lotta Gavel-Adams, who will give a short introduction, and then she will lead a moderated discussion afterwards. So don't miss that. Tickets are on our website. And on the day after, March 15th, we welcome Swedish artist Gaia to the club. Gaia is a Swedish woman who is kind of an experimentalistic musician, and her music is really esoteric. No?
Yes.
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 I know these words better in Swedish than in English.
Which is crazy to me.
Yeah. But no, she's wonderful. She's a very talented musician, and she also has a really strong sustainability message. So at the club here on the 15th, you can get dinner, and then she will have a concert, a shorter concert, and then she's going to lead a Q&A, a little bit of a discussion about her beliefs in sustainability and her music. And she is also giving a longer concert at the Triple Door on March 20th, which you can find tickets on Triple Door's website and even on ours, I believe. But don't miss this. I think it's going to be wonderful.
That should be really fun. And it's on a Friday. We do a lot of fun things on Friday nights. So.
We do. We have great music on Fridays, and this is absolutely no exception. And then on April 4th, we welcome Lo Dagerman. We are starting a new series where we're going to welcome authors, meet the authors, bokprat, book talks, that we're going to do regularly here at the club. And so stay tuned for that. But our first one is Lo Dagerman, who is a Swedish-American author, or she's just Swedish?
Yeah, she's Swedish, but she lives in America. She's lived here for 40 years. Lo Dagerman has written a wonderful memoir that was a big success last year in Sweden about her father, the famous Swedish author Stig Dagerman, and his marriage to her mother, the actress Anita Björk. And it's a wonderful memoir about these two people, their creative process, to the backdrop of Swedish history and culture. And yeah, she is coming to us to speak about this book and her experience growing up with these famous parents. And yeah, she has lived in America for a long time, so you could consider her a Swedish American. And she'll be happy to meet people and talk about anything Swedish American related to her book and her history. I'm so excited that she's going to come, and we're going to have this on Thursday nights. Am I right? The first night is the Thursday,
Yes.
the 4th of April.
Upcoming, we will have a pancake breakfast coming up soon. Our pancake breakfast is the first Sunday, it does happen at a breakfast time, even though they're Swedish pancakes. We are learning, but they're delicious. So we host a new brunch series that started in January. It's hosted on every other Sunday outside of our first Sunday. March, we have a lovely menu of items coming up. We have a crab puff with Newburgh sauce, a tofu scramble. We also have sour cherry Swedish pancakes. I know, again, in breakfast time, we will talk to Chef about it. But it's so delicious. It's so fun. It's all you care to eat, meaning it could be all you can eat, but we will try to slow you down just a little bit. And we're on our top floor in the Three Crowns dining room. So the view from where we're recording is lovely, but on the top floor, it's just picturesque. The sun has been coming out on Sunday, so it's been so lovely and nice. And it's just a fun, intimate brunch. One of our biggest events of the year is coming up so quickly. ABBA Night! ABBA Night returns! So exciting.
Do not miss ABBA Night.
You cannot miss ABBA Night, April 26th. It is a Friday. Doors open at 8:30 p.m. All of our general public tickets go on sale very soon. The FABA show Internationally known, the Faba show will be
Yes.
performing. We're very excited about that.
I've heard very good things about them.
Only good things.
Only good
There's
things.
only good buzz. So we're very
Mhm.
excited about that. We also have the opportunity this year to do a meet and greet with the bands. Disco attire. I mean, a lot of people try to dress like ABBA, but you don't want to be confused. You know, you don't want to be confused
With the band.
With the
Yeah,
of
that
course
happens.
not.
That happens a lot.
Yes, you'll be signing autographs the whole night.
That sounds so much fun. I want to go.
Oh yeah, you
Maybe
should do
something
that.
like 70s style for the time.
Exactly.
ABBA,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Get the boots.
Dancing
get the-
Queen is my favorite song.
You will hear it multiple times that night. I am sure. I'm going
excited.
to count how many times I hear that song.
I'm going.
Thank you so much. I've learned today not only so much about the Swedish Club, but about Swedes in Seattle as a whole, the immigration pattern.
Thank you. This was fun.
So much. Stay tuned for next episodes coming up.
Yes,
we have
it's
big
gonna come.
plans.
We have big plans. This is not the end. You will hear more
It's
of
the
our
beginning.
voices.
It's
This
the
is the beginning.
Of a wonderful friendship.
If you have suggestions for the pod or you're interested in a topic, would like to discuss further with our lovely host, you can contact us at podcast@swedishclubnw.org. It will also be listed in the link. You can also find us online at swedishclubnw.org, where you can find more information about the Swedish Club here in Seattle, our podcast, more about the cultural program, and the wonderful classes.
Thank you so much. See you next
Thank
time.
you.
See you next time. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.